What's up, everybody? This is Dr. Austin Perlmutter. This video is going to be a little bit random, but I think you'll find it really relevant to what's going on in the world right now and maybe even to yourself. So the other day, I get a call from the same area code that my phone number is registered in, and I kind of had a feel that it wasn't anything too important, but I decided to answer it. And sure enough, I was told right off the bat that I had qualified for a vacation, basically anywhere in the world, a 5-day, 4-night vacation, completely free. All I had to do was just check out the amenities for 30 or 45 minutes. And, bottom line here, this is a scam. These are scam phone calls that are intending to take our money away. And as somebody who's studying how we make choices, this is really interesting because it's pretty objectively a bad decision to participate in a scam like this, and yet people each day are falling for this. The FTC has actually released data showing that in the context of COVID, there are about 121,000 claims for COVID-related scams, and people are losing millions and millions of dollars. So I thought this is a really good topic for a video because I think we're all in some ways vulnerable to these scams. So I want to outline what happened in this call that I just received and how it kind of abuses certain cognitive shortcuts and heuristics that we use to make decisions. So that's what this video is about. All right, so let me walk through first of all what happened on my phone call and how that in essence taps into these psychological manipulation patterns. So the first thing that this person did was ask me to confirm my area code, even though obviously this person had it, they dialed the number. But by doing that, it made it seem like they had actually legitimized their whole process, that there was something specific to me, there was something specific to the area code, and it wasn't just a random cold call to somebody that happened to have the same area code as the telemarketer. The next thing that this person did was get me to agree to and to go along with this amazing offer. And how did he do that? He presented this as something that was impossible to turn down, this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and basically kept asking me, is that something that you would think was good? Is that something that you would enjoy? And actually asked me specifically, what are the things that I enjoy when I'm on vacation? So in my case, I told him I really like snorkeling, and he said, oh, well, this is an opportunity. You like snorkeling. This is a great place to go for snorkeling. That sounds like something good, doesn't it? To which I said, of course, yes, it does. The next thing that he did was very early on asked me to confirm I had a valid credit card, which is very random considering the fact that we were doing supposedly a completely free trip. What he said was, I need your credit card information because you're going to need it when you check into the hotel. But that's a red flag right there. That doesn't really make much sense. That's way down the line and certainly not something he needs to know right away, unless, of course, his goal is to get me to give him money today, which was, of course, his goal. Next, he kind of snuck in these extra features. He told me that after this 4-night, 5-day vacation, I actually qualified for another completely free 8-day, 7-night vacation, which was really random if you think about it. You're already doing something great for me for free. Why do you need to throw that in? And, I look at this as kind of just building towards this package that you just cannot turn down, where you're getting progressively more excited about it and they're getting those hooks in you. And then lastly, he asked me to commit to a $1,200 deposit, which, that's kind of the goal, right? He wanted me to give him this money, and chances are if I would have done that, I would have never seen it again. Okay, so that's what happened with me, but I want to put this in the context of psychological manipulation and how this, in essence, tapped into these manipulation techniques that are pretty well established. Now, as it relates to influencing people to make choices, there are a couple of big names, and one that you might have heard is Robert Cialdini. He has written several books. Probably the best known is a book called Influence, where he talks about these strategies that people use to get others to engage with the behaviors that they desire. So if you're a marketer, these are the types of techniques that you are going to be using to convince other people to buy your product. And I wanted to talk about how these principles specifically apply to what happened to me the other day and hopefully enable you to understand how they might be used against you at some point in the future. So the first thing that Cialdini talks about that is relevant here is the scarcity principle. So what is scarcity? It's the idea that there's only a limited amount of a supply. And in this case, the telemarketer told me that they only had a couple of vacation packages left, and that if I was to get off of the phone, it would no longer be available. So I had to act fast. I had to act in this very limited window of time, which of course forces me to make a decision on the fly, a really snap decision. It's actually exactly the opposite of what's good for me, and it's the exact thing that's good for somebody trying to sell a product. Next, they use the consistency principle. And what does this mean? It means that people like to be consistent. If I sign my name on a document saying that I care about something, I'm more likely to say that I care about it or act in such a way that is consistent with that document, even if later on I don't actually feel that way anymore. What he did in this case was he got me to say that I wanted to go, that I would be interested in this vacation, that it sounded like a good deal, and then later on used that against me. He said, hey, you already mentioned that you really wanted to do this, right? And of course I said yes. So he's trying to force me to stay internally consistent, which works out really well, I imagine, for these types of marketers. The next thing he used was something called social proof. Now, this one is basically saying that when we see that other people are doing something, it makes us more likely to want to do the same thing. How does he do that? He basically says that other people have really enjoyed this vacation, tons and tons of people are taking advantage of this offer. So these are things that when you hear them, you should think this is an attempt to hack into some of these psychological thought patterns. And then the last thing that he did was actually quite interesting, but tends to be pretty much the status quo for these types of things, which was he brought in his manager. Towards the end, where I was about ready to say I'm not interested, they had pitched me this $1,200 deal. I said, I just can't pay that. It's too much. And he said, let me see what I can do. Went and put somebody else on the line that was a manager. So that manager is supposed to tell me that now this is an authority figure. This is somebody that I can trust. And when this person tells me that he can get me a better deal, I really need to pay attention. Of course, that's really not, if you're going to lose a little bit less money versus a little bit more money, neither is really a great deal for you, but it makes it seem like that relative to what you've heard before in the conversation. So to pull all of this together, scams are a major problem because they target our thinking problems. They target our biases that are known to present these weaknesses for people to exploit. And right now, it's an even bigger problem. As I said before, the FTC has made they've actually reported over 100,000 claims for COVID-related scams. This is a millions and millions of dollar issue, and in a further blog post, I'm going to explain why we might be particularly vulnerable to scams right now in the era of COVID. So here are the things that you can do, and here are the things that you can tell others you care about in a way of avoiding these types of scams. First of all, if you're getting a call from an unknown number, you should be a little bit suspicious. It's unfortunate it has to be this way, but there are so many scams going out that if you don't know who's calling, sure, you can answer it if you want to, but don't expect that that's somebody who actually knows you or is actually looking out for you. You want to be wary of anyone who doesn't seem to know you too well. When they call you and they maybe have 1 or 2 bits of data on you, for example, your phone number, for example, the location, the county where that area code comes from, don't expect that that means they actually know who you are. And even more important, don't give them extra information. Often these people will say, I just need to confirm your first and last name. If they don't have that, you should definitely not give it to them because it's just going to play into their overall scheme. Next thing, do your research. So if you get a call from one of these phone numbers, in the case of my phone call, for example, they actually did have a website that they had set up, but you could see it wasn't legitimate. And if you were to type the website into Google, pretty quickly it came up that other people had lost money, that this was a scam. So you should always give yourself the window to do a little bit of research on this company that is going to be taking your money. Next thing, ask somebody you trust what they think about it. It's really hard when you have these kind of influence techniques applied to you to break out of this and see things objectively. That's why it's a great idea to have somebody that you care or that you know is a bit more objective to review these things before you act on them. Next thing, you always want to pause before making a purchase of any sort. It's just a good technique. You know, there just aren't that many things that you have to act that moment, otherwise you're not going to have that opportunity. These are mostly marketing techniques that are designed to capture your money and designed to keep you from accessing your higher thinking and really weighing the pros and cons of a purchase. So give yourself that pause before any purchase. What that means is don't make a purchase on the call with somebody you've never heard from before. In the very off chance that this is a legitimate deal, they should have the opportunity for you to call back and then ask to do this later on the same day. Okay, Last thing, and this is a really simple thing, just keep your credit card in your wallet. By the time you've taken it out, you've already started those brain patterns that are going to lead to you reading out the number. If you tell the person you don't have it available right now and they shut down immediately, that's a really great sign that this is not a legitimate offer. And if it is something that you do decide you want to purchase in the long run, you can take the credit card out later that day, another day, it'll be all right. Okay, so in my next, as I said, blog post, I'm going to go into some of the neuroscience of why we might be especially vulnerable right now to scams in the era of COVID. We'll talk about things like stress, the prefrontal cortex, and how inflammation might be playing into making us a little bit more vulnerable to these ploys for our money. If this was interesting to you, please let me know. Please share. I appreciate that, and I hope you're having a phenomenal day. Thanks.